Alright, in today's lesson we're going to be solving for a specific variable. Our objectives for this lesson are going to be to solve equations for given variables and using formulas to solve real-world problems. Here we're going to solve an equation for the specified variable. We're going to solve for b, okay? We have a b, a c, and all these numbers here. And when we get our answer, we're going to have a b and c and all these numbers here. Okay? The only thing is that b is going to be isolated on one side. So, if we want to isolate the b here, b is the only thing that doesn't move. What we're going to do is subtract the 12c. Remember, we always add and subtract first, multiply and divide second. So we need to figure out what's added or subtracted to the b first to get it away. In this case, it's a 12c, so we're going to be subtracting 12c. Okay? The 5b is going to come down. We didn't touch that. The positive 12c and the negative 12c is going to cancel. Now, a lot of you are going to want to put negative 3c, but we're not going to do that, okay? Because if you remember, this 9 by itself is a constant. This here has a variable. They're unlike terms. If they're unlike terms, there's no way to combine them. You can just write one right in front of the other, and it doesn't matter the order. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write 9 minus 12c, just like that. You could also put negative 12c plus 9. Just watch your signs. Okay? Now again, we're looking at this b here. We're trying to get this b all by itself. Now, we've already added and subtracted away from the b, we're trying to multiply or divide away from the b. So we look at the b and we think to ourselves, okay, there's a 5 multiplied to it. So I need to get that 5 away. In order to get that 5 away, we're going to divide by 5. Opposite operation always. Divide by 5. Okay? The 5 divided by 5s are going to cancel out. We're going to bring down the b. Okay? And we just keep this side exactly as it is. We're just going to put 9 minus 12c over 5. This is our answer. Notice we started our problem with a b and a c. We're ending our problem with a b and a c. But the b is isolated on one side by itself. And that was our intended goal. Okay. Going on to this next one, we're solving it for y. Okay. So we look at the equation. We have an x and a y. We're going to have an x and a y in our answer. Okay, we just need to isolate the y. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to look at the y. I'm going to think, okay, I know I add and subtract first. What am I going to add or subtract away from that y? Okay? This right here, this 2x. This 17 is multiplied by the y. It's not added or subtracted. You wouldn't touch that. You're going to subtract this 2x. So I subtract the 2x from this side. Subtract the 2x from this side. Okay? The positive 2x and negative 2x cancel. Remember, we're always doing the opposite operation. Okay? Don't forget the negatives, okay? Make sure you're bringing the negatives down too. So it's going to be negative 17y equals, and again, just like the last problem, those are not like terms. Doesn't matter what order you put them in, but you definitely cannot combine that to 11x. Okay? You have to keep them separate. This is a constant. This has a variable. They're unlike. So I'm just going to go ahead and write 13 minus 2x. Okay? On to the second step. We're thinking to ourselves, okay, we need to get the y alone. Here's the y again. We've already added and subtracted everything away from it. We're on to the multiply and divide step. Okay? Alright, we're looking at the y. What's multiplied to the y is negative 17. So to unmultiply, we're going to do the opposite operation. So we're going to divide by negative 17. Go ahead and divide this whole side. The negative 17s are going to cancel out. We're going to have y isolated just like our goal was, right? We're solving for y. And we just leave this side as is. But we really can't have that negative there. Okay? So in order to get the negative out of the denominator, we're going to go ahead and multiply the top and the bottom by a negative 1. When I do that, this is going to become a negative 13 and this is going to become a positive 2x. I'm just going to go ahead and flip them so I don't have the negative out front. You don't have to. So I'm going to go ahead and write 2x first. minus 13. You could have kept it the same order. And then I'm just going to put that over a positive 17, because negative times negative is going to be a positive. Okay, a few more examples. 7x minus 2z equals 4 minus xy. Okay, we're getting a little harder now. We're solving this for x. Notice, there's an x here and an x here. Our first goal is to get both those x's to the same side. Okay? So, I'm going to go ahead and move this x, and I'm going to go ahead and pick, I want my x's on the left side. So I'm going to move that x over there. I'm going to have to move the y with it. That y is attached to it. I can't just add the x without moving the y. So I add the xy. Going to put my 7x. Again, this has an x and this has an x, but this has a y. If this has a y too, they're not like terms. You cannot combine them. So it's going to be 7x minus xy. Both our x's are on the same side, but we still have that minus 2z. Our next step will be to get rid of that. Equals 4. Okay? Both of our x's are now on the same side, right? X here and x here. But we have this too, and we don't want that. So we're going to go ahead, opposite operation. If this is subtracting, we're going to add it, and we're going to just move it on over to the other side. Okay? Alright, so we have a 7x minus an xy equal to, again, can't combine those, keep them separate, they're not like terms. Alright, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. We've got to factor out one of those x's. We have two x's. We can't solve for a single x if we have two. So what we need to do is pull an x out of both of those terms. We've got to factor out a greatest common factor. So our greatest common factor is x. We factor an x out. Okay, if we factor an x out of here, we pull the x out. We're essentially unmultiplying or dividing. Okay, so if I take this x out, well, x times what in the parentheses is going to give me 7x. Well, x times 7. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 7. My subtraction sign will come down, and I think the same principle here. X times what can I put inside parentheses, is going to give me xy. Okay, well, x times y is going to give you xy. And it's going to look just like that. Keep in mind now, if I were to take this x and multiply it or distribute it back into the parentheses, it's going to give me this up here, 7x minus xy. But for the sake of this problem, we need only one x. And this is how we go about doing it. We factor it out. So now we have x times this entire quantity, but we only have one x. And the right side's not going to change for now. Okay? Now, we have x, and we have this entire quantity, 7 minus y. That entire quantity is multiplied by the x. That's how they're attached. So if we want to unmultiply it, we divide. Okay? We're just going to divide an entire quantity. We're going to divide by the entire expression, 7 minus y, on both sides. Okay? Remember, keeping this equal, we got to do to one side what we do to the other. Okay? This entire quantity, get another color in here. This entire quantity, 7 minus y, is going to cancel. And we're going to go ahead, bring down the x. And x is going to equal this whole thing over here. There's no way to simplify it. Okay? It's going to be 4 plus 2z over 7 minus y. Okay? I do want to point out, in the problem up here, we had a 7x, a 2z, a 4, and a y. In the answer, we have a 7 and x, a 2, a z, a 4, and a y. Okay? That's how it should always be. We're going to practice a word problem now. Let's move it down. Alright, so it says the formula for the volume of a cylinder is volume equals pi times the radius squared times the height, where r is the radius of the cylinder and h is the height. We're going to solve for h. So we're just going to take this formula, we're going to extract the formula from the word problem. Okay? So our formula here is v equals pi times radius squared times height. We're solving for r, right here. R. That's what we need to get along. Oh no, h. H right here. This one's kind of easy, right? It looks hard, it looks like it'd be a word problem, but all you're doing is extracting the formula. Okay? Then once you extract the formula, you take a look and you're like, well, nothing's added or subtracted to that h. As a matter of fact, everything that's attached to that h is multiplied. So we can just go ahead and unattach everything in one step. This is a one step. Okay? We divide by pi times radius squared. Divide by pi times radius squared. So our pi's on this side cancel, our radius is squared cancel. We're left with h. We've isolated the h in one step. And h equals the volume over pi times radius squared. And that's as simple as that is. Okay? I want you to go ahead and you'll start on your iPads now with your homework.